Cuba Gooding Jr. will be charged with at least one count of forcible touching. The actor turned himself into police in New York earlier this afternoon. Here you see him arriving at the police department earlier. The incident allegedly happened on Sunday at a bar in Manhattan. The actor is accused of inappropriately grabbing a 29-year-old woman. Gooding denies the allegations, and here's what his lawyer, Mark Keller, said just moments ago.
I got this thing in my face.
Go ahead.
We have just completed the surrender process. Mr. Gooding has been fingerprinted and photographed. In my 50 years almost of practicing law, I have never seen a case like this one because there is not a scintilla of criminal culpability that can be attributed to Mr. Cuba Gooding Jr. after I have extensively, with my staff, reviewed the video of almost 2 hours, which reflects the entire event for which we're here today. Mr. Gooding has not acted inappropriately in any shape or form. Nothing in the video could even be considered ambiguous. And I frankly am shocked and horrified that this case is being prosecuted. As you may know, originally we were not sure if we were going to surrender him because I believe that after the district attorney's office reviewed the video and saw that he was not culpable of any criminal conduct, that they would decline to prosecute. However, for some reason, and we'll maybe get better insight when we get down to the court, they do plan to prosecute him, and they're charging him with one, to my knowledge it might be more, but one Class A misdemeanor of forcible touching, which never, ever happened. At this point, we're going to go to the courthouse. We're going to interpose a not guilty plea. We're going to ask for a quick return date. And we're going to see if the alleged the person who alleges the abuse, shows up at court. I doubt she'll be there. I doubt that she'll sign an affidavit accusing him. I believe the affidavit will be signed by the police officer who was not there. All I ask of you is that you judge for yourself. Look at the video and make your own choice rather than relying on the overzealous policing in this matter. I think it's extremely unfortunate that Mr. Gooding has to go through this process, had to fly from California to New York and go through all of the dynamics of this process when in fact he did absolutely nothing wrong. And I am completely confident that he will be totally exonerated, and I would not be at all surprised if at the conclusion of Mr. Gooding's proceedings, a criminal charge is lodged against the lady who's alleging that she was abused and that she's charged with a perjury. It's very unfortunate, and we are all very sympathetic to people that are victims and are abused. But what is also extremely disturbing is when somebody who comes forward and alleges abuse was not abused and seeks to simply get their 15 minutes of fame or the connection to a celebrity, as I think is the case here. And if that turns out to be the case, I'm hoping that the prosecutor will vigorously prosecute the lady who's alleged to be the person abused here, so that it'll send out a loud and clear message to other individuals not to do anything that will result in an innocent person being charged with a crime that they did not commit.
What about the new allegations of a woman from Butter who was from 2008?
We heard that somebody sort of came out of the woodwork and alleged that there was a touching of her derriere over a decade ago, 12 years ago. I spoke to Cuba. He has no knowledge of it. Obviously, we would have sympathy for anybody, whether it was 10 years or 20 years, that was abused in any way. But I have no belief that this will go any further, because there's a 2-year statute of limitations, and certainly a vacant event like this dating back 12 years certainly doesn't establish any pattern of conduct that would be relevant to the present proceedings.
What is his demeanor at this point?
Mr. Gooding is very respectful of the judicial process. He has complete confidence that he will be fully exonerated. He's been very cooperative, as you know, at his own expense, and not because he was under an arrest warrant. He voluntarily came back from California to New York. He's been treated very nicely since he's been back here, and he's completely comfortable and confident that he will be completely adjudicated innocent of any criminal conduct.
How's he feeling emotionally?
He's a very strong individual, and he's a people person. He loves people, and he is very perplexed because the people that he usually sees when he goes to these parties and these different events are always very kind and loving. They want to get a picture of him, and he reciprocates by kindness, and as he was in this particular case. So he's very troubled when somebody, for no reason, turns on him and makes a complaint like this.
The victim alleges he was highly intoxicated. Is it possible he doesn't remember what happened?
Mr. Cuba Gooding Jr. Was at this facility. As to how much alcohol he consumed, I'm not sure, but he was accompanied by other individuals that were with him the entire time, and they corroborated that he did absolutely nothing wrong. In fact, they indicated that the particular individual who's alleged to being abused here was unfortunately stalking him and following him around. And he was polite, but ultimately they were told to please, leave them alone and give them privacy. And at that moment, that individual must have been unhappy about being rebuffed, and apparently, went and made this false complaint.
Did they argue in the club, as has been alleged? Were they arguing inside the club?
They were not arguing. There was no altercation. In fact, the security at the club were present the whole time. They indicated to us that Mr. Gooding was totally appropriate. We have reviewed the video with members of that club, and they, as was I, horrified. One of the actual lawyers that reviewed it with us said that he's obviously not a criminal lawyer, but even a sophomore in law school could see that there was no criminal conduct, and he himself, as were other people that were involved, were shocked that any charges are brought in.
Where's Mr. Gooding right now?
Mr. Gooding is in the process now of being transported down to the criminal court. He's being taken in a vehicle. We'll be meeting him down there. He's in the process. He's going right now, and he's probably in transit. And then when he gets down to the court, the paperwork will be processed, and probably within the next several hours, we'll be entering a not guilty plea, trying to set it down for an early June date to bring closure to this. And we're certainly extremely optimistic of a positive result.
So we have any sure that you're saying you're not seeing in this video that led them to this misdemeanor charge?
I must say that it was really very disturbing to me after my office reviewed the video, that the prosecutors did not decline to prosecute. And I can...
But what is your reason for prosecuting Gooding? What did they tell you? You said you saw
Well,
the video.
they're alleging that they're relying upon a statement by this lady that he touched her, and the charge is a forcible touching. However, when the video is fully reviewed by the prosecutor's office, we're confident that they'll see that her statement is not accurate and that the case will certainly be dismissed. I believe
Did he have security with him at the time?
there was security in the club, and you can rest assured that if there was any inappropriate conduct, the security in the club, who has obviously a duty to all of the patrons, would have interjected and stopped that from happening. What I am concerned about is that it is disappointing that this matter has not been vetted out a lot more seriously by the prosecutor's office. Not because Mr. Gooding is a celebrity, but anybody, especially in these times, that's charged with something like this should have the benefit of the prosecutor's considerable evaluation before they are formally charged.
But what would
the
her
prosecutor
motive be?
of the state of New York and in any jurisdiction not only represents the interests of a victim, but the interest of all of the people of that state. So that in essence, the district attorney of New York County has a duty and an obligation to protect the best interests of the defendant. And when they see that nothing happened like this, they're not supposed to move forward with the case.
But what would her motive be? What would her motive
You know,
be to make it
we can only look to the past where people attack, someone else with a false allegation because somehow they want to attach themselves to a celebrity, somehow they want to have their 15 minutes of fame. Sometimes maybe they look at a celebrity and they have a jealousy and they say, oh, I can take you down. I can only speculate, but I am horrified when I see someone make a false claim, because look at what it puts a gentleman like this through.
So you're calling her a liar?
She thinks about money.
I'm sorry?
For the alleged victim, she thinks about trying to get money.
Well, that's always a consideration. A lot of times a person will make a claim and then follow it up with a civil suit, so that could also be a possibility. But, I can only speculate. I don't know why this lady did that.
Was his personal security with him that night?
The security that was there was the club security. And we have reviewed things with them, and they have corroborated that Mr. Cuba Gooding's conduct was not inappropriate.
In the video, do you see the victim stalking him like you described?
Stalking is a term of art, but we do see her following him around incessantly. We even see one incident where she's basically rebuffed and said, please leave us alone, let us have our privacy.
Is that the part that TMZ shows where a woman is in a black tank top and she's standing next to him and sort of like dancing?
I didn't see that.
So how do you know it's the woman that you're referring to?
Well, we know who the alleged accuser is, and we know that she was the individual in the video that was following them all over the place.
Was it in the TMZ video that's been...
I didn't see the TMZ video.
So you're relying on the video from the club?
Well, in a case like this, there's evidence. And the evidence, if you're fortunate enough, reveals what happened. Now, in this case, it's a no-brainer. The club was well endowed with videos from the moment he got there to the moment he left, and we don't need anybody to, contemplate or wonder what happened. We just can go to the video and see what happened, and it's black and white. It's clearly a case of, I can only say, overzealous policing, and based on the video, there will be total exoneration here.
Thank you, sir.
But he says he is entirely innocent of any criminal conduct. Heller further says that he hopes the 29-year-old woman who has accused Gooding of groping her is prosecuted herself. Heller says a 2-hour security video taken from the bar where the alleged groping took place totally exonerates Gooding. CBS News national correspondent Jerika Duncan is outside the police precinct in Manhattan and joins me now. Hi, Jerika. What more can you tell us?
Well, you know, attorney Mark Heller basically said more of what he told me late last night, is that he looked at these 2 hours worth of video from this club where this allegedly happened and said there is not a scintilla of evidence pointing to culpability in reference to Cuba Gooding Jr.'s involvement in a groping of a woman. Now, he's telling the story in terms of more details that we got today, is this was a woman that was sort of following him around in a club and he believes may have wanted attention, was rebuffed, and now came out with this allegation. But it doesn't negate the fact that Cuba Gooding Jr. Is facing a 1 Class A misdemeanor of forcible touching. So he is going to be processed in criminal court. As you just heard from his attorney, they're heading there to see if they can, of course, enter a not guilty plea. And we're not sure if he's going to make any comments after that. We knew that coming in, there was talk about him possibly addressing the media, I think that he was going to come out of here, but he didn't. So he's being processed at this hour, and we're still waiting to learn more. When I showed the attorney Mark Heller the video that TMZ released of a woman who was in a video with Cuba Gooding Jr. at this club, he would not confirm if that was in fact the woman that he says was following him around in that club. So still a lot more to learn. You have the police saying that there was this alleged groping incident that they're investigating. Now you have prosecutors saying that they believe they have enough to prosecute him with this 1 Class A misdemeanor of forcible touching. But again, you have Cuba Gooding Jr. and his team saying this never happened, that I was with friends having a good time, and that nothing inappropriate happened. But the fact that there is video, I think, is what we as journalists would want to see as well. And that's something that the attorney said he wants all of that video to be put out so people can see for themselves what actually happened. Absolutely. The video seems to be the key piece here, is that video. Do we know what other evidence prosecutors have at this point besides the woman's testimony? It sounds like, according to Mark Heller, that is what they're basing this off of. When I asked him, well, what other evidence do you think prosecutors have? If you're saying you saw this video and you didn't see anything wrong with anything that happened, what is it then that prosecutors have? He said that he thinks that they're really just relying on this statement and her allegation that this happened. All right, I guess we'll have to see as the case progresses. Jerika Duncan in downtown Manhattan, thank you.